My name is Steve R. Hawkins, Intelligence Sergeant. When I first arrived in Vietnam, I got stuck in the rear for 3 boring weeks, serving as an instructor for the Vietnamese Special Forces at Nha Trang. Not bad duty, really, but incredibly boring. Now, with that behind me, on my way to Noi Pec, a hot camp up of the Central Highlands, and a chance to see some action. Finally.
Welcome to GameSpot Live. I'm Greg Kasavin, and I'm here to tell you about Viet Cong for the PC. It's a first-person shooter that takes place during the Vietnam War, and it was developed by a company called Pterodon, based out of the Czech Republic. All of a sudden, games based on the Vietnam War are becoming really popular. It's strange on the one hand, but on the other hand, the Vietnam War was all about these kind of relative close quarters, intense, tactical guerrilla battles, and that's really, you take that into a game, and that's really the sort of action that first-person shooter fans want to see. So on that level, you can really tell why a developer might want to make a game that's all about the Vietnam War. Actually, Viet Cong isn't just about crawling through, ferns and vegetation on your belly and kind of shooting people through the branches. It does a really good job of actually setting the stage for this conflict. It uses a lot of music from the time period and develops its characters pretty well, things like that. So it does a good job of actually informing you to some extent about what this conflict might have actually been like. At the same time, it effectively straddles the line between realism and kind of fun first-person shooter action. It really does a good job of being a tactical game while not being overly about trial and error. It's not terribly frustrating to play. It's also got a complete single-player mode and a complete multiplayer mode. Lots of options in both regards. And the only real problem is that the game does have some technical issues. The graphics have some problems. You might have some trouble running the game on your system, getting it to perform at a smooth frame rate. One that you'd kind of expect to see from other first-person shooters that you might have been playing recently. On the one hand, the game has a lot of really good details in it. You see all the foliage kind of swaying in the breeze. You see little bugs and critters running around through the jungle and things like that. Your characters, the guys in your squad, all animate realistically. You'll see them kind of use hand signals to warn you when enemies are approaching and things like that. You'll see them kind of step over logs and climb under kind of fallen trees and things like that. So the game has a really realistic look to it on some occasions. And then on other occasions, you'll see things like characters clipping through walls or clipping through other objects, especially when the fighting is at close quarters. There's the frame rate issue. It's for many users, it's related to the copy protection software that the game uses, which makes it so that the game is constantly checking for the CD as you play, and this has the unfortunate side effect of bogging your frame rate down. This is a game where you're aiming at enemies that are far away. It's about precision and really choosing your shots and conserving your ammo, so you can't have it where you're getting like a haphazard frame rate that's skipping around. That's going to definitely ruin your fun. The good news is that there are ways around this. If you look through the game's message boards at vietconggame.com, you'll see that users have found ways of getting the frame rate up. So I highly recommend that you do that if you go into this game. And it's just rather unfortunate that the game shipped with these sorts of issues. They're going to keep some players from getting as much enjoyment out of this game as they could, and it's going to make some people shy away from the game altogether. And that's really too bad, because Viet Cong has a lot to offer. Its single-player campaign puts you in the role of a sergeant first class who joins with this special forces unit that goes on a series of really challenging and dangerous missions. The plot of the game goes through some of the paces that you'd probably expect, but that's a good thing. I mean, you're going into this game about the Vietnam War. You're going to want certain types of things to happen. You're going to want to get ambushed and surrounded by lots of enemies, or cut off from your squad, or going through Viet Cong tunnel networks and that kind of stuff. And you'll get to do all that in this campaign. You'll find that the artificial intelligence, both of your allies and of your enemies, is really quite good in this game. from your foes. You'll learn to really kind of respect the fact that they really come across like a fearless enemy and a very determined enemy. They're not going to throw their lives away. They're not going to just run blindly at you and get killed. They'll use cover very effectively. They'll only peek out to take a few pot shots at you and then duck back down. They'll use cover, and to defeat them, you'll really have to sneak up on them. You could often take advantage of situations like where your squad is pinned down and shooting at the enemy. You could run around and flank the opponents and catch them off guard, and that leads to some really satisfying battles. So while the action in Viet Cong isn't necessarily that different superficially from other first-person shooters, the whole feel of it is definitely rather unique. The game does successfully have this jungle guerrilla combat aspect to it, where you're constantly looking for cover. The game's got about 20 different real-world weapons in there, everything from AK-47s and M16s to Thompsons and different handguns and different grenades and things like that. All these weapons you could either shoot from the hip, or you could bring them up and look through the sights at the touch of a button. One really nice feature with this aiming system is that when you're ducked behind cover and you press the aim button, you'll automatically peek out from behind the cover and take aim. It's a really nice system when you're kind of in a shootout with an opponent, and much of this game does consist of these kind of really tension-filled shootouts. There's a really good sense of bullets kind of whizzing past your head and striking objects near you, so you'll constantly be in fear of getting hit and really looking for any cover that you could get to try to protect yourself. It really adds to the suspense and tension of the game, and it's also furthered by the fact that a lot of the game consists of you and your squad kind of marching towards an objective, never knowing when exactly the attack is going to come, whether it's going to come at all. The game's pretty good about pulling surprises out on you. In addition to the campaign, there's a great quick mission mode where you could basically set up a scenario where you throw a bunch of enemies randomly interspersed throughout. You could opt to have a squad or not. You could choose different weapons at the beginning and stuff like that, and have at it. Just go into a mission and shoot some guys, go hunting, basically. Since this game does have really good AI and, basically a good feel to its action, this is a great mode for extending the single-player value of the game. In addition to that, there's a full multiplayer suite which contains no fewer than 7 different modes of play. You've got your standard deathmatch and team deathmatch and capture the flag. There's also a sort of a 3-flag variant of Capture the Flag. There's a Counter-Strike style mode where you could choose different character classes, soldier and engineer and medic and sniper and things like that. And it's a America versus Viet Cong battle that's objective based. So that's definitely one of the more popular modes out there. I wish I could recommend Viet Cong to everybody. It's obviously not a game for everybody, in part due to the subject matter, but mostly just because the game, it doesn't have that level of polish that everyone is going to be able to appreciate. It is going to have some issues. The multiplayer mode can kind of dump you out unceremoniously, and you might have to tweak your setup to get the frame rate running smoothly, things like that. It's really too bad because the game does, in the end, deserve your attention. It does a lot of things really well. It has a lot of details that you won't find in other first-person shooters, and it handles the subject matter really quite well. So it all adds up to a game that has really a great presentation. It really puts you in the whole mood and atmosphere of this conflict. And, if you're picking up a game called Viet Cong off the store shelves, that's pretty much what you're going to want to get out of it. So if all that sounds good to you, then by all means give it a shot.